Our enemies use our own people against us. And we want to make sure we understand how they're doing that. Um, it's a lot of shenanigans going on behind the scenes. Let's just say that. It's possible, that this message is going to rub some folks the wrong way. So be careful how you respond in the chat. In addition to that, the purpose of the message is not to tear down or destroy our people. It's just the opposite. This message ties into the information that I've been sharing about religion and its ongoing impact on our community. So we need to talk about things. In our modern times, the top two, Christianity and Islam, have served as a means of oppression, especially towards the children of Israel. And we need to pay attention to how they are used to create divisions and conflict among us. It's going to be an interesting discussion, you all. I promise you that. We're going to pull back the curtain and look at the hidden hands behind the scenes. You're going to see that it's not just one faction. Religion has played a dual role in history. On the one hand, religion is seen as a catalyst for good, but on the other, it's been used by our enemies for subjugation and colonization. Understanding this duality will be important in these last days as we see how the prophecies unfold. The final beast is going to demand worship. So this tells us that religion is a major factor in the system. But we need to understand that we were not given a religion. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, better known as the Abrahamic religions, are not aligned with the instructions given to the children of Israel. Take a look at this from Bible Hub. It's talking about Israelite society as depicted in the Bible. This says it was complex and divinely ordained. It was a divinely ordained community that revolved around the covenant relationship between the Most High and his chosen people. This society was categorized by its religious, social, and legal structures, which were deeply intertwined with the worship of the Most High and adherence to his commandments. So you're talking about a way of life governed by moral, ceremonial, and civil statutes. The society was tribal in nature, consisting of 12 tribes descended from the sons of Jacob. So, what we have today is an imitation of the real thing. But paganism is at the root. All of the world's religions point back to Nimrod and the Babylonian Empire. And I'm going to leave links for several videos in the description for those who have not heard those messages. One will be all religions lead to the same God, but which one? The source of all mystery religions, and who is the God they worshiped. So we're going to get started on this session and take a look behind the curtain. In this series, I've been focusing on Christianity and the Roman Catholic Church, also called the Mother Church, because it's the one claiming to be the continuation of the way. It claims to have been given the authority of priests and kings. Based on their dogma, membership in the Roman Catholic Church is the only way for men to receive salvation. So it already has the framework in place for a one world religion, and they have used the same blueprint since its inception to expand and survive. It's called religious syncretism. I've covered that as well. Two of the most popular ones are Easter and Christmas. So, syncretism is taking parts of various religions and blending them into one. This comes from Catholic Dictionary. It says syncretism is the efforts to unite different doctrines and practices, especially religion. Such unions are part of cultural history and are typical of what has occurred in every segment of the non Christian world. Syncretism is also applied to ecumenical efforts among separated Christian churches and within Catholicism, as well as attempts to combine the best elements of different theological schools. In one of my theology classes, the professor said one of the best examples of religious syncretism is the Trevi Fountain in Rome. I'm not sure if you've been there or you know about it, but I'm going to show this quick clip about Trevi Fountain. This video was on a channel called Rome Wise. This is the Trevi Fountain. It's a symbol of Rome's water supply and a tribute to their gods.
Oceanus, who represents all the Earth's waters in the form of a river that goes all the way around the globe. A lot of people think that's Neptune, but it's not Neptune. Neptune would have a triton and a dolphin, or sort of fish-like dolphin. You can see there are tritons, which are sea gods, under Oceanus, and they are trying to rein in those horses. One of the horses is pretty calm, and he's being easily reined in by the triton on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side you can see a pretty energetic horse, and the triton is having a really hard time managing him. That's basically to represent the moods of the seas. There are two statues on either side of Oceanus. This one is abundance. You can see from the cornucopia that always represents abundance. And the one on the right-hand side of Oceanus represents health. You can see the serpent and the spear that represent medicine or health. This bas-relief above abundance shows the story of Agrippa ordering his men to build the aqueduct, the Aqua Virgo, that will bring the water into Rome and feed the baths behind the Pantheon. And above health, we have this bas-relief, which is telling the story of the young virgin maiden that showed the Roman soldiers where the spring was. That's the name of this aqueduct, basically, the Aqua Virgo, Aqua Vergine, which is for virgin water, supposedly because of this story, this myth. And as we move up, you're going to see on the top of the fountain, there are four statues. They represent all of the abundance that water can bring. So let's take a look at them. First, we've got the abundance of fruit. She's carrying a cornucopia full of fruit. And next to her is the abundance of wheat, of crops. She's actually holding a bit of wheat there, and from the side you can see the detail. It is really amazing. Next is the abundance of the fall harvest, grapes, wine, and finally on the right end we've got the abundance of flowers. So these are all crops that lots of water can bring to the earth, and that's what the Trevi Fountain is celebrating, is the abundance of water and the health of water.
So you notice that they had the serpent displayed, and usually when they're presenting their pantheon of gods, you're going to find that serpent symbol somewhere in there, or the double or three-headed eagle. So just keep this in mind. But again, this Trevi Fountain is a symbol of religious syncretism. It represents the revival of ancient Roman technology incorporating elements from various cultures and religions. You saw the mythological figures and the symbols, such as the Titan, Oceanus, and the Roman goddess. Those were goddesses that she was talking about. Aqua, Virgo, which reflect the blend of Roman and Christian traditions. Now, in Las Vegas, there's a replica of the Trevi Fountain at the Caesar's Palace. It's surrounded by statues of Roman gods and goddesses. And just let's remember the phrase, all roads lead to Rome. And right now, what some may call a Catholic revival is happening. This is not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. So we need to pay attention to these clues um, that's happening right before our eyes, because a lot of the people who are Catholics are clueless about their true history or the true history of the Catholic Church. As I said, the Catholic Church knows her role in the last days. Many of her subjects do not, because most do not read and study scripture for themselves. They rely on the materials and interpretations provided for them. It's designed to keep them bound to the religious traditions. But those traditions, a lot of them do not align with truth. If we refer back to the book, The Pope and the Council, let's take a look at that. Remember, it tells us who's steering the ship. The Jesuits. The Jesuits. It's the teaching branch of the Catholic Church. Education became a defining feature of Jesuit work. By the mid 16th century, they had established schools across Europe. They influenced public education systems in many countries today. So just think about that. Also, Jesuits tell you, it's on their site, that they are in service to the Pope. This is linked to reinforcing the doctrine of papal infallibility. And that authority is far reaching. It's the bridge between church and state. The church is on one side of the coin and the state on the other. And Constantine paved the way for that to happen. Church and state are intimately connected. Don't let them tell you any different. In a state sponsored religion, how can you not have compromise? This says they act and react on one another. And it is inevitable that the political views and tendencies of a nation should sooner or later influence it in church matters also. But at the root of it all is evil, because it points back to the Talmud. That's the hidden part. That's the secret part. What's the connection between Jesuits, Jews, and Freemasonry? Are these sects working together behind the scenes to bring about the one world government and religion? And what does it have to do with us? You will see that some of our folks are being used to push a certain agenda. Let's look at this far out article. It's talking about how Spike Lee is urging Black folk to claim Pope Leo. Why? What does that mean exactly, that he wants Black folks to claim Pope Leo? This says, upon meeting the religious figure, Lee gifted the Chicago born ruler a customized Knicks jersey. The exchange quickly went viral online. So apparently, Spike Lee, had received an email inviting him to come to the Vatican. And he thought it was fake, but later found out that it wasn't. They told him the meeting was going to be about cinema. It says, consequently, the people or the Pope won Lee over. Spike Lee says the Pope was telling the truth about how cinema could have a great impact for good. Interesting. So Lee added that his people are Black, talking about the Pope. His people are Black. Then he says, do your research. His family comes from New Orleans. They're Creole. There was a lot of intermarriage. So he says, Black folks need to claim him. We need to call him our brother. You all, do you think he planted seeds in the minds of folks who believe this? The question is, you claim him, but does he claim you? So we need to start paying attention to the messages that Spike Lee will begin pushing in his movies, because we know how impactful music and movies can be, right? Hopefully so. Now that brings us to Kanye. Without a doubt, he's being handled and controlled. That has been going on for a long time. Every now and then, he tries to break free, but they manage to put those chains back on him and rein him in. Look at the title, Kanye's Theological Argument with His Catholic Friend. Do you think that's a coincidence? Do you think that's a coincidence? Put that in the chat. So it's asking the question, could Kanye West become Catholic? I'm going to spend some time on Kanye because it will reveal what's happening to other celebrities like him in our community. It's just not, you can't just say it's the ish trying to control or put forth a certain narrative. Again, you're going to see that other groups are pushing this narrative as well. So again, it's asking the question, could Kanye West become Catholic? It says that possibility sounds less and less unthinkable as time goes on because of a particular video that surfaced on Kanye's computer. Now, pay close attention to the date. It says in 2019, 2019 was an important date. In 2019, Kanye announced his conversion to Christianity and released the film and album Jesus is King with his Sunday service choir. Who else is promoting that theme now? Jesus is King or Christ is King. Put that in the chat. I'll drop down. It says his presidential campaign page includes not one but two prominent nods to Catholicism, an image of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and the tagline, creating a culture of life, a phrase coined by Pope John Paul II. No doubt, the rich artistic and philosophical matrix of Catholicism, if someone could draw him more deeply into that world, resonate deeply with Kanye West. So someone needs to point him or pull him into that world. Let's pause right there because I don't want you to miss that. Someone is needed to draw him more deeply into that world. Were his handlers trying to steer him in that direction? If so, was it so that they could use him as a tool to promote Catholicism? It says, but there are very old and very stubborn theological divisions between Protestants and Catholics that he, like any evangelical Christian would eventually need to confront. And yet, it sounds like he's already started to do that, and with a very close Catholic friend. Interesting, right? The Catholic friend they're referring to is not just any old friend, it's Don Crawley, a fellow Chicago native. Who else is from Chicago? So, think about how these things, certain things, seem to overlap. Don Crowley, a fellow Chicago native and fashion designer, was Kanye's former manager and label executive, and was also the best man at Kanye and Kim's wedding. Interesting. Now, while he didn't mention any other specifics of their back and forth, it says, the two friends have clearly honed in on the central debate between their traditions stretching back 500 years, namely faith and works. All the classic Protestant objections to Catholicism, the Pope, and tradition. So these were Kanye's objections. Mary, the saints, statues, priests, the sacraments, the Mass, ultimately come down to the same objection that Catholics put a bunch of works between the Christian and Christ, between the sinner and salvation, whereas we are saved by grace alone, through faith alone, it says. So apparently, this friend is trying to steer him in another direction. Now, according to this Christian Educators Academy article, it says Uncovering the Journey How Kanye Became a Christian. How did Kim Kardashian respond to Kanye's conversion? Well, apparently she was surprised. Surprised. She didn't know. Why didn't she know? Wouldn't she know that if there had been a change in his habits, his behaviors? This says when Kanye first announced that he had converted to Christianity, his wife Kim Kardashian was understandably taken aback. She was used to Kanye being a controversial figure, but his newfound faith was something entirely unexpected. I mean, I find that interesting. You would think that his wife would know this. It says, according to sources close to the couple, Kim's initial reaction was one of confusion and concern. She reportedly didn't know what to make of Kanye's religious views and was worried about how it would impact their children. That's strange that a husband wouldn't express that to his wife. That's a bit strange. Now, listen to this blog post from St. Mary's Catholic Church. The writer says, the writer is saying this: I was very surprised to run across this December 2019 article in Vatican Magazine. This magazine usually includes stories which mostly covers articles or cover issues with the Catholic Church. But to my surprise, when they named the top most influential Christians in today's world, they chose pop icon Kanye West as one of the significant new Christian voices in the US. That's a bit strange, don't you think? It says, even though he's not a Roman Catholic, my understanding is that he and his wife, Kim Kardashian, are raising their children in the Orthodox Armenian Apostolic Church, which is an ancient church going back to the apostles. Another interesting point. This is a tweet from Kim about her baptism, and the date is October 2019. Same year J.D. Vance converted to Catholicism. She said, "Thank you, Armenia, for such a memorable trip. So blessed to have been baptized along with my babies." So, this Armenian cathedral is sometimes referred to as the Vatican of the Armenian Apostolic Church. It was built in 303 AD. So, very old traditions there. It goes on to say, Kanye West, the American rapper, singer, songwriter, record producer, entrepreneur, and fashion designer, has currently been acclaimed by Catholics and Christians everywhere for his new album entitled Jesus is King, and for his conversion to Christianity. Remember the name of that album, because that was the message they wanted him to push. Now, look at the title of this article. This is highlighting his interview with Tucker Carlson. And this was when Carlson was still at Fox News. So they titled it Kanye to Catholicism. It says, in his recent Fox News interview with Tucker Carlson, the artist, now known as Ye, admitted that he fell off the narrow path he set out on, going from the visibly present spiritual beginnings of his music career with songs like Jesus Walks to songs like I Am a God and Love It. So they had the image and platform already laid out for him. All he had to do was step into it. Now, in the interview, he talked about how he almost aborted his daughter. And remember, that's a key talking point for Republicans, abortion. So he said, Kim called him screaming and crying, and she told him she was pregnant. And for months, they considered not having the child. And he said Kim had the pills in her hands. So then he quotes a Bible verse about how thou shalt not kill. And then he told Tucker what happened when he was in Paris, the incident when Kim was robbed. And he said something happened during that time. He was watching TV or something, and the screen went black and white. And then he said, God said to him, if you F with my vision, I'm going to F with yours. Now, family, is that how the Most High speaks to us? So he said after that, he called Kim and told her that they were going to have the baby. And then he said, even if Kim were to divorce him after his speech, he's thankful that she brought North into the world. Do you see that they're creating an image? They've created something for him to step into. So you're either going to present the image that the Ish folks created for you so that it will promote their agenda, or you will step into the image that the Mother Church has created for you. And you're going to see how the two intersect in a bit. Let's go on. So it says, although Kim, who has Coptic roots, seemed to have supported Kanye as he was becoming more and more Christian, sadly, she did divorce him. I'll drop down. It says, recently, before he was banned from the platform, Kanye liked a Fox News Instagram post about Shia LaBeouf's very public conversion to Catholicism. So they wanted to highlight that Kanye was liking a post about somebody converting to Catholicism. And it was said by some that LaBeouf was responsible for West's eccentric clothing style. Perhaps LaBeouf could also give some inspiration to West to make the jump across the Tiber. What does that mean? It means to convert to Catholicism. They're trying to push him in that direction. So there was this concerted effort, but Kanye couldn't get with the program for some reason. He just would not get in line. So let's go back to this Word on Fire article, because they wanted to publicize and market his conversion. How many people do you think he would have been able to influence when they said, oh, look, Kanye just converted to Catholicism? But things didn't work out as planned, so they had to come up with another plan. It goes on to say, as Kanye was hanging out with conservative pundit Candace Owens at a fashion show, and it noted that Owens' husband, George Farmer, also developed a strong Catholic faith recently. What a coincidence. And Kanye just happens to be hanging out with them, wearing a White Lives Matter t-shirts to make a statement against the Black Lives Matter movement, which he called a scam. So he's wearing one t-shirt and Candace is wearing the other. I absolutely agree that the Black Lives Matter movement was a scam. Which group funded it? But the message behind the shirt was all lives matter. So we can't just focus on what's happening right now with Black folks. On the front of the shirt was Pope John Paul II. Are you getting this? It says a day or so after that, Kanye posted a picture of his Saint Teresa of Lisieux shirt. So he's growing these, or getting these conservative ideas and posting these things, because the idea is that I need to promote this, or someone wants us to believe that he's now converting. So his connection with LaBeouf and his sporting of the Catholic t-shirts leads me to believe that he may be moving toward a conversion, is what the writer says. Then he says, we should pray for that to happen. He says it's Catholics who know that they have the richest cultural heritage with art, music, and spirituality. A person with creative predispositions like Kanye would have no trouble seeing the beauty in the faith. Family hidden hands were carefully orchestrating these connections. The question is, for what purpose? So I want you to watch this clip of Stokely Carmichael. And you all may remember him, those of you who may not know, that he was a part of the Black Panthers. So take a listen to this clip.
You're one black man who went to a good, essentially white high school in the city of New York.
That's
you
right.
obviously had had a good education.
That's-
A good many of the people who work with you here in SNCC can say the same thing.
And we're saying that,
And you're a black man who came from a New York ghetto.
and we're saying that there's a system that allows for one or two black people to get out.
They put a system in place that will allow for one or two black people to get out. Pause and think on that.
And that's the rationale for keeping other black people down.
And it has nothing to do with the unwillingness or inability of the Negro to help himself and to work hard.
That's the rationale, that the reason why black people aren't this is because they're lazy, unambitious, stupid, have rhythm, and they eat watermelon.
Mm. Mm. Let's not miss what he said. Stokely said there's a system in place that allows a few blacks to get out to keep the others down. What are some of the things, what are some of the other things they use? Religion, politics, entertainment, to include sports, music, and movies. So here's an image of Kanye with Kim at the Coptic church for his daughter's baptism. You can see they're really trying to push this, but he was fighting against it. And what happens when you fight back? Buck breaking. Here's the thing that most of these folks don't understand about the system. They will allow them to reach certain levels for a reason. They want to exploit their gifts and talents for their purposes. For their purposes. So these folks think they're doing good because they escaped the plantation, not realizing that the whole system is like a plantation. Let's go on. Look at this. Prince tried to tell him. So they may be driving a Rolls, but they're still wearing the shackles. And when they yank those chains, they're going to make an example out of them so that the others won't get out of line. And Kanye is the perfect example of how they use the whip. Basically, we will control you or we're going to take you out. Now, why would this man, why would he put this on his face? And I mean, he had it on there for a while. Why would he do that? Just think about this, family. It's a diabolical plan. It's a diabolical system. So they had a platform already prepared for Kanye. They began to heavily promote his Sunday service events, having him appear at mega churches to get as much media attention as possible. The man and the message had been scripted. He was being controlled. Think mind control, MK Ultra. You all, please remember to like and share this message because our people need to know this and wake up. This is a very diabolical system. Just think about this. Out of the blue, Kanye is front and center at Joel Osteen's church. He said he's mentoring Kanye. Well, how did that work out? But how do you explain this? Now, if you remember the session I did on how the Catholic Church leaders started meeting with mega church pastors around the time Tony Palmer preached at Kenneth Copeland's church and said that the protest was over, you should be able to see how they began bringing the leaders back into the fold first. Osteen was one of those leaders. This article from Christian News says Joel Osteen meets with Pope Francis at the Vatican. He's made the church more inclusive. He's made the church more inclusive. According to reports, Osteen was part of a delegation organized by the International Foundation in an effort to encourage interfaith relations. You're going to hear that quite often. We're building interfaith relations and ecumenism. Utah Senator Mike Lee, a Republican, a Mormon, Gail Beebe, the president of the interdenominational West Point College in California, and Pastor Tim Timmons, founder of South Coast Community Church, also in California, were among those who greeted the Pope along with Osteen. So Osteen said, I just felt very honored and very humbled. So he says it was amazing. And even to go back into that part of the Vatican, there is so much history there. The place that they took us through, you feel that deep respect and reverence for God. They don't feel that in your church? I mean, you all. Oh my goodness. Let's go on. I just have too much to share. I can't stop. It says mega church pastor Joel Osteen has been cultivating a friendship with apparent born again Christian rapper Kanye West and wants the Jesus is King MC to visit his Lakewood church. It was reported that Osteen and West have developed a friendship through phone conversations about faith, according to Lakewood Church. I wonder who orchestrated those calls. Hmm. So it says it wasn't clear if Osteen invited West to perform, as West had previously been showcasing his latest work among audiences at popular churches across the country. Osteen is not the only Christian leader West has been affiliated with, as previous reports have linked him to Pastor Adam Taylor. Taylor pastors Placerita Bible Church in California and says he has been discipling West. Man, he had a lot of people mentoring and discipling him. Also, West and wife Kim Kardashian had their wedding ceremony officiated by Pastor Rich Wilkerson Jr. in 2014. Well, let's see who he is, and then we'll come back to this. Let's look at this. This ABC News report wrote this article about how Kanye West pastor wants to get people to come to church. So this guy is Kanye's pastor, but he's being mentored by all of these other pastors. This says this pastor is a fourth generation Pentecostal preacher who presided over the Kim Ye nuptials. He presided over the Kim Ye nuptials. Notice her name is first. It says he is also on a mission to make church cool and sell millennials on God. From the Kardashians to Bieber, Wilkerson has attracted a number of stars with his unique sermons. Wilkerson and his wife star in the new Oxygen Channel reality show, Rich in Faith. So, a reality show preacher. It says he's even got a deal for a book titled Sandcastle Kings, Meeting Jesus in a Spiritually Bankrupt World, with the cover designed by his buddy Kanye West. Let's dig deeper, you all. This is a blog post from a Catholic Engaged Encounter, or from Catholic Engaged Encounter. They are announcing one of the speakers for an event at a Catholic church, none other than Pastor Rich Wilkerson of People's Church. So you see, one hand washes the other. It says, welcome to Catholic Engaged Encounter, where we are thrilled to introduce you to Pastor Rich Wilkerson, an exceptional speaker who has captivated audiences at People's Church with his powerful messages on faith and belief. It goes on to say that you will immerse yourself in a dynamic event that combines the teachings of Pastor Rich Wilkerson with an engaging atmosphere of religious community and society. This Christianity Today's article says Pastor Rich Wilkerson, who married Kim and Kanye, says his church is for everyone, from the nameless to the famous. Wilkerson said the celebrities sometimes attend their services, but the church is inclusive of everyone. He described how he met the superstar. He said they came to the church and we just became friends. Wilkerson is also Wes' spiritual advisor. You all, I have to pause. When the rapper had questions about performing his single Jesus Walks on Stage, he consulted the Florida pastor. Now let's go back to the article. You all were going to see that the Christian world began celebrating Kanye's turn from producing the devil's music to lifting up Jesus as king. Again, remember that title. So there were a lot of gullible Christians falling for all of this, about like how they fell for it when the puppet masters created a Christian image for Donald Trump. Paula White came out and said he's a baby Christian. Just ignore the fruit you see with worms in it. As long as the person used Jesus and Christian in the same sentence, hey, we got a winner. Oh my gosh. You cannot make this stuff up. The article says the rapper is unquestionably the greatest human artist of all time. West's declaration was linked to his apparent boundary-breaking moves, such as saying things that he believes others won't, and being an avowed Trump supporter. Saying things that he believes others won't, and being an avowed Trump supporter. Can you think of someone else who's doing that or was doing that? But why did they need to connect him to Trump? Because it says the president remained unpopular among Black Americans. That right there is another important piece of the puzzle. You need those promoting God and country on the right. And on the left, they look for those who will promote the lifestyle of the alphabet community. Do you see how this is working out? It says it was West's very public support of Trump and his controversial statement about slavery being a choice that caused some of his African American fans to put him on pause in 2018. Here's the thing for both groups. They heavily promote melanated folks trash talking our community, or using their platforms to minimize the ways they oppress our people. You'll have instant success when you do that. But if they dare to shine a light on the injustices, they shut them down, like Colin Kaepernick. So it goes on to say that despite his apparent turn toward Jesus, former fans and admirers remain skeptical of West's intentions, particularly due to his turn to the Black church for his Sunday service shows ahead of his album's release. An appeal to the Black church is part of the redemption playbook for disgraced Black celebrities, Naima Cochran writes at Billboard. A lot of moving pieces. So apparently there was a glitch in the matrix. The plan backfired, and Kanye became a liability. 3 years later, this article from America says Catholics cannot ignore the harm caused by Kanye West. But I mean, it was working for a while, wasn't it? This Premier Gospel News article says Kanye West says he has a problem with Jesus. Say what? Hold on, Cletus. It says Kanye expressed his disillusionment with traditional Christian beliefs. He said he had issues with Jesus. Listen to what he says. I've been through a lot, prayed a lot, but didn't feel the presence of Jesus in those moments. It says this statement has ignited conversations about faith, prayer, and action within the context of modern society and Christianity. So the church had to punt. They were going to allow the first group to put their chains back on him. You all. Oh my gosh, you cannot make this stuff up. So after his highly publicized coming out as a Christian from his 2019 album, Jesus is King, to spending $50 million on the Sunday service events, he shifted away from the faith-based narrative. My. So dude was out there running around acting like he was free. And they had to send the slave catchers after him. In his transition from being Catholic, he starts saying things like this in July 2020. Planned Parenthood was made by Margaret Sanger, a known eugenics with the KKK to control, look at the highlighted portion, that population. But he says, when I'm talking about that population, I'm talking about the 12 lost tribes of Judah. And he tells you who he's referring to. The black race. Now, you know his handler couldn't have him out here doing that. They needed to inject more solution to get him back under control. Again, think MK. Yeah. We can't have him running around like that. He's out here acting like Nick Cannon. And how did they get Nick Cannon back under control? They will threaten you with the things they think you love most. Just understand this. A lot of our celebrities, the famous, they're paying attention to what we've been saying. They are paying attention. And they may acknowledge the truth secretly. They're too scared to admit it publicly because they don't want to lose what they have. Buck breaking. And then they have to go crawling back to them and make public apologies. I know I'm going in. I know but we have to know what's going on. We have to see how our people are being played. Let's go on. Let's add the other connection. This is from News One in October of 2022. It's a timeline of Kanye West and Candace Owens. It says this was a match made in MAGA hell or MAGA hell. Kanye, Kanye West and conservative fires. Let me look at this. Kanye West and conservative firestorm Candace Owens may appear to be forming an unexpected alliance. But a closer look at a timeline of their strange friendship shows that it's not at all out of the blue. What do they mean by that? It's not at all out of the blue. And by the time that I'm done, you're going to see that no, it's not a coincidence that these things are happening. They're trying to match them up with certain people. Let's go on. So apparently, the connection began when Kanye praised Candace for the way she thinks. This says while West and Owens's burgeoning friendship may come as a surprise to some, they've operated adjacently in the same orbit over the past few years. Very true. Now let's follow the timeline. It says their first interaction came in 2018 when Ye showered her with praise for her far right philosophical rants. Interesting. So he posted a tweet that said, I love the way Candace Owens thinks. She retweeted the message, adding, please take a meeting with me. I tell every single person that everything I have been inspired to do was written in your music. I am my own biggest fan because you made it okay. I need you to help. What does she want him to do? Help wake up the so-called Black community. Wake us up. But here's the thing. The Most High had already started waking us up, but it was not regarding the things she's talking about. It's the truth about who we are. A lot of our people started waking up in 2016, just a couple years before all of this is happening. Coincidence? Okay. Now listen, it says Kanye's tweet came around the same time the rapper was swooning over Donald Trump and his presidential cronies. The star crossed paths when Owens, again in 2018, when he allegedly offered to design a few t-shirts for her Blexit event, and they were going to, this event, it says, would be for an event at Turning Point USA's Young Black Leadership Summit. So this Blexit movement was spearheaded by Owens to get Black voters to leave the Democratic Party. At the time, Owens gushed about the t-shirt to Page 6, telling the publication, Blexit is a renaissance, and I'm blessed to say that this logo, these colors, were created by my dear friend and fellow superhero, Kanye West. So this is a tweet showing the shirts, and it says, at Kanye West, design these Blexit t-shirts for at Real Candace O's new Blexit movement. So these shirts were handed out at the event. But apparently, months later, things briefly turned sour between Kanye and Owens after he accused her of using his star power to spread harmful political messages about the Democrats. This is what he had to say. I introduced Candace to the person who made the logo, and they didn't want their name on it, so she used mine. I never wanted any association with Blexit. I have nothing to do with it. But obviously, the handlers behind the scenes wanted folks to think that he did. So, in an attempt to do damage control, Owens released a lengthy apology statement. This says, If I had to imagine what it would feel like to have a bullet pierce my heart, it would be exactly like the moment I learned Kanye told the world he felt I had used him. The Blackout author wrote, I never once said that Kanye designed the t shirts for Blexit. I would like to publicly apologize to him for any undue stress or pain the effort to correct that rumor has caused him, his business relationships, or his family. He simply never designed them. But again, somebody wanted the world to believe that he did, right? Because they're creating an image. So I don't know if either one of them understand how carefully they were being managed. They were being managed. Days later, the former foes quickly mended their friendship. Owen smoothed things over by sending Ye a copy of her book. What was the book about? Helping Black people leave the Democrat plantation, as if there isn't a Republican plantation. Oh boy. It says the revival of Kanye and Owens' sunken place friendship just wasn't on our bingo card for 2022. But it is, in fact, a thing. It seems like the fiery political star has a hold on Ye, and she seems to be supporting a lot of his kooky political and racist rants. But now Owens' motivation for cozying up to Kanye is being questioned as his closest advisors and friends reportedly believe the man who previously announced that he was bipolar is in the throes of a mental health crisis. So TMZ reported that Owens has been described by insiders as an advisor of sorts for Wes. And considering Owens' reputation as a grifting con artist who will stop at nothing to get paid, there are reported suspicions she's taking advantage of Kanye, both politically and financially. It says we'll just have to wait and see how this one plays out. Now let's look at a few things. This part is very important. It says Owens was born in White Plains, New York, but grew up in Stamford, Connecticut. She has described her grandfather as a major parental figure in her life. She had a traumatic experience in high school when a former friend called her the N word. And this was supposed to be her friend. This friend also threatened to unalive her in a series of voicemail messages. What a friend. Others on the messages included the 14-year-old son of then Stamford Mayor Dannell Malloy. The elder Malloy would become Connecticut's governor. So you know they had to make that go away, right? But that wasn't the only incident. In another incident, Owen said she was kicked and subjected to racial slurs by 3 girls in a parking lot. She ended up missing 6 weeks of school. And during that time, she was attacked online, listen, by students, parents, and teachers. Now, do you think the attackers were all ish people? Because surely she didn't have a problem with white Europeans. You all know why I'm saying that, right? So her family received a settlement of more than $37,000 from the school district. And then Owen said she was called a liar, and folks said she just wanted money. They called her ugly and said she was desperate for attention, saying she was just another Black girl taking advantage of a situation. In other words, they were saying she was using the race card. Now, for a young person to go through something like that, that had to be pretty traumatic, and it's despicable. It's despicable. So in 2016, after dropping out of the University of Rhode Island and working in New York at Vogue and Glamour, Owens wrote an open letter to Connecticut in the Stamford Advocate, and she was recounting the hateful phone messages. She said their words to this very day represent the most horrific that I have ever heard uttered against another human being. Again, who were those students, parents, and teachers? Were they all Rev 29ers? So it says the case became a media sensation. And she said her face was plastered on the front page of every newspaper across Connecticut, and everyone from the NAACP to Dr. Phil wanted in on the story. But something amazing happened in 2017. According to her, she became a conservative overnight. She realized that the liberals were actually the racists and the trolls. Now, are we talking about the folks who attacked her at her school? They were all liberals? It says she gained increased prominence in the wake of the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. She posted a video called I Don't Care About Charlottesville, the KKK, or white supremacy. And that gained the attention of prominent right-wing commentators, including Alex Jones. Yep, I imagine that would happen because she was speaking their language. Later that year, she was hired at Turning Point, and Charlie Kirk brought her with him to talk to students across the country. Now, why do you think that is? She had the right message for their audience. She also gained the attention of Donald Trump, who in May of 2018 posted about Owens on Twitter. He said, Candace Owens of Turning Point is having a big impact on politics in our community. She represents an ever expanding group of very smart thinkers. I wonder if he feels the same way now. And it is wonderful to watch and hear the dialogue going on. So good for our country. So now we have her and Kanye both connected to Trump. Coincidence? But things went haywire in 2018. She was accused of making conservative, or I should say hateful statements about a certain group. You know, Rev 29ers. Interesting that Kanye was accused of that too. So that led to her having to resign from Turning Point. And now that we know how deeply connected Kirk was to that community, is it surprising that she had to go? So she began working at the Daily Wire for Shapiro. I wonder what his views are about our community. While she was there, she continued making controversial content, including a documentary critical of the Black Lives Matter movement. And in 2022 is when she and Kanye wore the White Lives Matter t-shirts. And then what happened in 2019? She married George Farmer, a conservative British business executive and son of a member of Parliament's House of Lords. AP published this in March of 2019. Owens' America is not a racist country. So that comment set off a Twitter firestorm. It says Candace Owens has drawn sharp criticism for proclaiming America is not a racist country. Tim Scott all day long, Kamala Harris all day long. You all. What's the other one? Byron Daniels. I think that's his name. So that's what she said. America's not a racist country during a conservative convention Friday after once winning a Connecticut lawsuit as a victim of racism. Owens's family received $37,500 from the Stanford Board of Education after she accused a group of teens of leaving her threatening and racist messages while she was a high school student in 2007. Owens, who regularly appears on Fox News and travels to speak at college campuses, made the controversial comments Friday at the Conservative Political Action Conference, sponsored each year by the American Conservative Union to promote a conservative agenda. So she said, "Stop selling us our own oppression. Stop taking away our self-confidence by telling us that we can't because of racism, because of slavery. I've never been a slave in this country." Now, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. But you cannot overlook what is at the root of all of that either. You can't overlook that fact. All right, let's go on. We're going to look at some other things. There are some who criticized her because they felt that she had done a complete 180. And to be fair, folks can change their minds. I mean, it's their right. But this says, in 2015, Owens was CEO of Degree 180, a marketing agency that offered consultation, production, and planning services that included a blog on a variety of topics written by her and other commentators. In a 2015 column, she wrote for the site, she criticized conservative Republicans. This is 2015. And she was writing about the crazy antics of the Republican Tea Party. She also added that the good news is they will eventually die off. She says, peacefully in their sleep, we hope. And then we can get right on with the obvious social change that needs to happen. Well, what change would that be? She was also critical of Donald Trump. In 2016, the blog featured an article mocking Donald Trump's, well, you see what's written there. Interesting. So by late 2017, Owens had started producing pro-Trump commentary and criticizing notions of structural racism. I mean, really, what was at the root of what she experienced? What was that exactly? Why were they coming against her? Why did she win that lawsuit? She was criticizing notions of structural racism, systemic inequality, and identity politics, all positions she herself had been publishing 2 years earlier. In August 2017, she began posting politically themed videos to YouTube. In September of 2017, she launched Red Pill Black, a website and YouTube channel that promotes Black conservatism in the United States. In November, at the MAGA rally and expo in Illinois, Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk announced that Owens had been hired as the organization's director of urban engagement. So, Turning Point's hiring of Owens occurred in the wake of allegations of racism at Turning Point. Now that's interesting. Well, in May 2019, Owens announced her departure as communications director for for the organization. While at Turning Point USA, Owens received the support of prominent figures in the Republican Party. President Trump called her a very smart thinker, while Republican National Committee Chair Rona Romney said at CPAC, people like Candace Owens, like Charlie Kirk, we need more leaders like that. Ted Cruz expressed his admiration by jokingly suggesting in 22 that she be appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States. Wow. In April of 2018, Kanye tweeted, I love the way Candace Owens thinks. Are you following the timeline? So the tweet was met with derision on the part of many of West's fans. In May of 2019, Owens hosted the Candace Owens Show on PragerU's YouTube channel. In April of 2020, Owens announced her intention to either run for office in the U.S. Senate or to be a governor, and that she would only run against an incumbent Democrat, not a Republican. She did not reveal which specific office she would run for or in which election cycle. In February 2021, Owens tweeted that she was considering a run for president in 2024. Now, these may, not be accurate. I don't know. Maybe she was just joking. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Owen said she had no interest in politics whatsoever before 2015, but previously identified as liberal. In October 2018, she said she had never voted and had only recently become a registered Republican. In January 2019, Owens stated, the left hates America and Trump loves it. She added that the left is destroying everything through this cultural Marxist ideology. The Washington Post has called Owens the new face of Black conservatism. The Guardian has described her as ultra conservative, and New York Magazine and the Columbia Journalism Review have described her as right-wing. Multiple media outlets have called Owens a far-right commentator. She was influenced by the works of Coulter, Milo, Ben Carson, and Thomas Sowell. And I'm sharing all of this because I want you to see these connections. In June 2020, Owens claimed that George Soros paid people to protest the murder of George Floyd. Shortly afterwards, she argued that George Floyd was not a good person. I don't care who wants to spin that, she said. The fact that he has been held up as a martyr sickens me. Then President Trump retweeted Owens's remarks about Floyd in a Facebook video that garnered nearly 100 million views. Owens called Floyd a horrible human being, citing his criminal record, and called racial biases among police a fake narrative. Owens claimed that the trial of Derek Chauvin, the former police officer who was convicted of murdering Floyd, was mob justice. This was not a fair trial. No person can say that this was a fair trial. So this horrible human being, did he deserve to have a cop kneel on his neck when the cop could have simply put cuffs on him and carried him off to jail? That shouldn't have been too difficult because other cops were standing right there. If you're struggling to breathe, wouldn't you fight against the pressure being applied to your neck? Now, she would say, well, I'm not saying he deserved to die. But just look at those statements. What in the heck did his background have to do with what that police officer did? I can't get into that one because yeah, I need to move away from that one. So, in 2015, she's posting anti-Trump and anti-conservative articles. In 2017, she's describing herself as a conservative Donald Trump supporter. Do you think some handlers are in the background, behind the scenes here? I don't know how true this is, but this says Owens has since characterized Trump as the savior of Western civilization. She has argued that Trump has neither engaged in rhetoric that is harmful to African Americans nor proposed policies that would harm African Americans. I wonder if she still believes that. You all, be careful what you post in the chat. I wonder if she still believes that. I don't think so. Because 2025, she called Trump a chronic disappointment. She said, I feel embarrassed that I told people to go vote for him. She said his bombing of Iran is utterly deranged. She also criticized his administration's decision to freeze the $2.2 billion in federal funding for Harvard University after sending a list of demands for student programming. She said, I never thought that I would see a day where I would be rooting for a university above Donald Trump and his administration. She says, I don't recognize this administration right now. I don't recognize what's happening. Interesting. So, we know that she met British politician, entrepreneur, and media personality George Farmer, the son of Lord Farmer. And in December 2018, she met him in 2018 at a Turning Point event. The two became engaged in 2019 and were married in August of that year at the Trump Winery in Charlottesville, Virginia. In April of 2024, Owens announced that she had converted from the Reformed Evangelical Protestant denomination of Christianity to the Catholic denomination of Christianity, the denomination of her husband. And she was also baptized. You all, I know you all had a lot to say. I know you had a lot to say. But I need you to put the pieces of the puzzle together, because a lot of our people who are placed in those types of position, they believe that it was because of their own intelligence, their own smarts, their gifts, their talents, and they have gifts and talents. You can't, take that away from them. She's savvy. She's bold, and yes, she will say things that some folks will not say. I mean, you have to give her credit for that. She will put herself out there, her toe to toe with them folks. Yeah, she's going in. But I want you to pay attention to who's pushing buttons behind the scenes. There's a left hand and there's a right hand. The doors are being opened because they are able to influence others to think a certain way or behave a certain way. How many people do you think voted Republican because of her? How many people do you honestly think, how many people you think she influenced? A lot. So the puppet masters either want them to support right-wing talking points or left. Both sides will focus on everything except the oppression caused by both groups on our people and how they benefited from them. They'll even talk about how they oppress every other group. Yes, we should get angry about what they're doing over there. But how can you condemn the Rev 29ers for owning the slave ships, but ignore the role of the Catholic Church that gave them the authority to do it? How can you only look at their role as slave owners and not the laws this nation enacted to protect it? How can we condemn them for pedophilia and ignore how rampant it is in the Roman Catholic Church? How do we blame them for atrocities in Gaza, but we don't have the same energy about how the United States supply the weapons? No, these folks are not woke. Because when you really wake up to the truth, you will see that those running things behind the scenes are cut from the same cloth. They're doing the bad cop, good cop routine. At the end of the day, the religion that will be birthed out of all of this will be a mixture of both. Let's remember who's steering the ship. When we look at those they prop up, we have to pay attention to what they're pointing to. And it's obvious there is an effort to point people toward the Roman Catholic Church right now. Obviously, that didn't work for Kanye. But what did she come out with? What was the saying? The same thing they wanted Kanye to promote, the same message. So the same institution that put the framework in place for the transatlantic slave trade, the same institution that put the framework in place for the transatlantic slave trade is now the religion we need to look to. Prior to that, it was Islam on one hand and Christianity on the other. Now the battle is between Protestantism and Zionism. What's happening is they're tearing down one structure. Think about Albert Pike's so-called prophecy. They're tearing down one structure to raise up the other. What are we talking about? Religion. Religion is being used to create the divide because they need to transform it into the one that will be for all men. Which one is already saying it's universal? You have to belong to it in order to be saved. But those steering the ship are leading the world into a form of it that aligns with what? The Talmud is going to have a mixture of all of that. Where do you think they got the books from? The Pharisees. Think about this. Both parties, both groups wield power and influence. Both behave the same way towards the little ones. And you all know what I mean by that, right? But when you think about Baphomet, it's the symbol of duality. Male, female. The trans agenda has to be a thing because in this new religion, they will have to make that acceptable. So you're railing against it because you think the Roman Catholic Church is against all those things, but you don't realize at the root, that is exactly what they're about. Both claim to be the chosen. There's duality in both groups, and they are connected to each other behind the scenes. Let's remember what Loren said in the video about the 13 bloodline families. They are protecting a bloodline. They are working together to bring down the religion of Judaism. And what's the other one they need to tear down? Islam. Constantine played a significant part of this, the blending or the merging of church and state. And in order to make all of this work, you have to buy in to infallibility. I know it was a lot. Oh my goodness, lots of comments. Let's see what you all are saying. Oh boy, I don't know where to start on this one. Let's see. I'm going to try to get as many of them as I can. You all remember to like and share. As I said, we need to help our people wake up. And again, I am not trying to demonize our people because some of them honestly believe they're doing the right thing. I believe she's transitioning, but she's got a ways to go. She's jumping from the frying pan into the fire. I hate to say it. And she's pointing a lot of people in that direction. That is not the way for us. That is what we need to come out of. We need to come out of that. When you talk about the synagogue of Satan, you only think about Rev 2 9ers, but you don't see how they're connected. Those who are working behind the scenes are cut from the same cloth. They play the bad cop, good cop routine. So Renee is saying you can't serve two masters. And that's kind of what's happening here. And people need to understand what's at the root. They need to look at the fruit. Ivory says they are very crafty indeed. Indeed. Let's see. Ambi786, we cannot trust these celebrities or Christmas pastors. Brother Charles, wake us up or put us back to sleep. Yeah. Yeah. Todd Wilson, yes, they are scripting this play. Yes, and we need to know exactly what's happening behind the scenes. Yeah, she has handlers. I don't know that she fully understands how much she's being managed. I think she believes she's escaped it, that it's over, and now her eyes are wide open, but no, no. One eye maybe, no, no. Let's go on. And again, it's not to tear her down because I believe the Most High is also using certain aspects of what she's doing. That's the part the Most High is able to cause good to come out of all of the wickedness that these folks are trying to do behind the scenes. She's not the only one. That's the point. That's not the point. So I don't hate her, but I need our people to understand what's really happening. Do not go in the direction that she's pointing you in. No, no, don't go that way. That's a ditch that you're going to fall into. So don't go that way. Drea, what's interesting is how they are promoting CO. They have given her a very clever and long cord by which to speak on certain truths. Yes, on certain truths. On certain truths. But they quickly shut down Kanye when he started talking about who we are. You see what I'm saying? How is it that you can research everybody else's history but your own? How is it that a vile nincompoop like Fuentes, whatever his name is, can shut you down on Africa's history? And the only thing you knew to talk about was Egypt. I mean, I can't go there. I can't go. That interview was just dismal. I felt bad for her. It's like, how could you not know the rich history, the kings and queens in Africa? How could you not know that? Oh, you all. Like I said, Rwan, spicy Jamaican. Both parties are rolled by the same set of kind of man called mankind. The Republican plantain is worse. You know what? I agree with that. I absolutely was saying that as I was working on this, because they wrap it up in a form of godliness. This is Christianese. We're the right God and country. And I mean, a lot of them are in the closet about their sexuality. That's why they don't really focus on that anymore. They can't. They can't focus on that because a lot of them are in that closet. So right now, the only thing they can really talk about is America first and abortion. That's it. That's it. But I think that party is worse. The Democrat, I mean, they know they're promoting filth, but they're not trying to wrap it up in godliness. Let's go on. Oh, goodness. Let's see. Oh, goodness. So much here. I'm going to get a few. Carla, Christianity includes. Well, you're talking about that church. Karen says everyone can see the Reds game and the Reds don't understand. They are naked and are seen transparently. Yeah, but again, the banner, they're waving that banner. We're Christians. The religious right. The thing is, our people can't see. They need you until they don't need you. They will put you out there. And right now, she's promoting what the Catholic Church wants her to promote. So there's going to be a certain level of protection for that. I'm just praying because when we think about Moses was, he was in Egyptian philosophy. What they were doing, he was doing because he grew up in that. But there came a point in time when he had to be separated from all of it. And one of the first signs to let you know that he was making that change, he had sympathy and compassion on his own people. He tried to fight for and protect his own people. Now that aligned with his assignment. But the Most High had to separate him completely from that environment. He had to just come out of it and spent years apart from it to get it out of him. Notice that Aaron was there, but Aaron was not called for that assignment. You know why? As soon as they got into the wilderness and the people were under pressure, who did they have build or make the golden calf? Aaron. Aaron. So a lot of these people that they're propping up now, when it's time for us to make this transition, you need to remember Korah. He was one of the leaders and influenced 250 other leaders because he had influence in Egypt. They were fighting against Moses. Moses is trying to lead the people in one direction. They're trying to take them in another direction. So you need to be praying about how to discern those that the Most High will raise up to lead our people. Just because they have status in Babylon's system does not mean they're cut out to be the leaders for what the Most High is moving us into. So just keep that in mind, family. You need to be praying about these things. Be praying about this. Red and blue makes purple. Is that what Prince was singing about? I don't know. I don't know. That is possible. That is possible. But just, keep these things in mind, as we go on, because these folks, they have plans. They're setting traps. They're setting snares. And it is the wisdom of the Most High that's going to keep us from being deceived and overtaken by all of this. People are going to have to submit to this beast system or suffer the consequences. I've already made up in my mind, I just have to deal with the consequences. That's when I said when they tried to push the Kool-Aid, it's like, I ain't doing that. I'm just going to have to deal with the consequences. My mind is, you better decide now. You better decide now. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying. So be sure to hit the like, family. Be sure to share. That's a way to help us get these messages out. We're going to wrap up with that. It is 9:45. The older folks are like, I need to go to bed. I need to go to sleep. So thank you to all of our new listeners, those who are joining us for the first time. According to Yah 7 says, I'll take suffering for the consequences for 5,000, Alex. I know that's right. Look, you just have to be, it's like, no, I'm not going that route. I'm not going that route. If you have not been listening to the sessions that I've been doing on the Roman Catholic Church, please get caught up. Please get caught up so that you can see why I'm saying do not go in the direction that these folks are pointing to. Spike Lee, he's on the watch list now. Pay attention to what he starts promoting. Pay attention to that. So again, family, thanks for joining us. Be sure to join me next time. Be blessed, family.